All right. So before we get into talking to the lovely Kerri this afternoon or the evening, depending, I just wanted to discuss a few things. One of the things I mentioned earlier was talking to Andrea about an article. The article that she actually sent me the other day in terms of when I was talking about wastewater and the rise of ice addiction in New South Wales and South Australia. She was actually referring to an ABC News article. And the headline was actually the Australian Crime Intelligence Commissioner released latest findings from Wastewater Drug Monitoring Program, and that was actually posted last Wednesday, the 26th of October at 5:41. So just wanted to point that out because I couldn't remember exactly what article it was when I was talking about it earlier in my promo. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, the other thing that we always do before we start a show is it's really important, obviously, it's to be able to reach as many people as we can, to be able to spread awareness and education about the drugs and the harms of ice. So if anyone is experiencing any issues, just please call the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign, and we have a 1-800 number. That number is 1-800-668-6423. That again is 1-800-668-6423. It is our national support helpline. So give them a call no matter where you are in Australia. We can put you onto someone that is in each state in order to be able to help you with whether it's yourself, someone you know, loved one, whatever it is, just to be able to get you the help that you need. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, which I discussed earlier as well, is that if anyone is needing extra support or furthermore, as well as private coaching, either for with myself, there's lots of lovely people around me, like this lovely Kerri, who's just become a children's coach as well. Lots of people are around to help. So please just sing out, find me on my socials. I can point you in the right direction and get you the help you want if the Australian Anti-Ice can't fit you in. But otherwise, we do have the buddy system with the Australian Anti-Ice Campaign. So after all of that, I would like to introduce to you the lovely Kerri. Thank you for being here today, Kerri.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Hey, that's all right. How are you feeling?
Yeah, nervous.
Yeah, no, I expected that. I did mention that a little bit earlier. You're a little bit nervous and a little bit anxious, which is why we're, pre-recording it. But I just want you to know, it is a really big thing to be able to do this. It's a big thing to be able to admit to yourself even first that you have a problem or around you people have a problem. But to actually acknowledge that and take that step to actually coming somewhere like here today is absolutely momentous. And I actually just want to thank you for doing that with me, purely because, to be able to stand in your truth, it is vulnerable. Oh, is it a little puppy or a little cat?
Yeah, he's got to be above everything. You'll see him throughout the recording.
No, I love it. Yeah, but I just want to say thank you. You're doing an amazing job, and you don't need to be nervous. It's just like you and me sitting here having a chat like we did the other day. So without any further ado, tell me, why did I want to speak to you today? What is it that first caught my attention with you when we were talking about drugs in particular?
Just my history, I think, and how widespread it has been throughout my life in the last, 20 years. People around me, family members, myself in and out. Just the diversity of the effect that ice has had on my family and myself.
Yeah. Is that still having an ongoing effect on yourself at present, either through self or through others in other family members?
Yeah, absolutely. I myself haven't touched it for a long time, but yeah, it's still very, very relevant in my family. Yeah.
So roughly how long has it been since you touched last then? We'll focus on you first. How long has it been?
Since I touched it at all would be about 4 years, I guess.
Yeah.
But I would consider myself having been in recovery for a good 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny thing, recovery, because you do go through lapses and, that yo-yoing effect, which takes, a long time. And even though it's something that you actually want to do physically within yourself, sometimes it can take a long while for it to actually be a permanent solution in your life. And it's not just as simple as just stopping, because it's the people around you, it's your friends. Obviously, if you've got family members as well, it makes it so much more difficult in order to be able to actually curb it.
Yeah.
Now, I know as well, we briefly discussed, we talked about, whether or not someone had a problem, and that denial. Yeah. Remember we talked about that? Yep. So
We did. We did.
Yeah. After we had that discussion, how do you feel now? Do you think that you did probably deny that you had a bit of a problem, even though to a certain extent it was semi-controlled, or?
I guess there was a problem. There was absolutely a problem that I was using at all. I think I'm one of the lucky ones that never experienced the full grasping addiction. As soon as I notice in myself that I'm behaving differently, as in if I'm lying about my usage or where my money has gone or something like that, it triggers something in me straight away that alerts me that there's a problem and I need to pull back or stop. So, yeah, I'm definitely one of the lucky ones that really didn't struggle getting off of it myself. Getting away from the influence is a whole nother matter. I've spent the last 3 years living in one of the worst areas of the northern suburbs of Adelaide. So, every second or third house down there is an ice dealer. Everybody that you see, 99% of the people you see walking past and, in the local deli or service station, you can tell it's a really bad area with very, low income area, I guess. And unfortunately that it seems to get the low income people a bit more widespread. I know it goes over, from the rich to the poor. Absolutely, no one's exempt. But yeah, it seems to hit those communities a bit harder, I think, because I think it's harder to find something to look forward to when every day is a struggle. And obviously using ice or meth, it just doesn't obviously make your problems go away, but at the time it makes you less concerned by your problems.
Yeah, without a doubt. Do you think it's also, obviously you were in an area that it is, much higher use, but in saying that, do you think you probably saw it a lot more prevalent as well because of the nature of your daily job that you used to do as well, being in hospitality?
Oh, absolutely. And working in different areas, being in hospitality, as a lot of people may know, you tend to move around a lot. You don't necessarily keep one job for 7, 10, 15 years. Moving around from different areas with my employment, you really do see the difference. Working in the pub in the particular northern suburb that I was talking about was one of the big reasons that pushed me out of hospitality, because you weren't dealing with drunks anymore. You were dealing with people that are on ice, meth, crack, whatever you want to call it. It's unpleasant. It's unpleasant. Most people are not happy people when they're addicts, as much as they think they are. They're really not. Very unpredictable, can become very violent very quickly. I'll deal with drunks any day of the week.
Yeah.
But I wasn't comfortable and didn't feel safe in my work environment with so much ice around. Yeah.
Did you see, because you were obviously in the hospitality industry for a long period of time, when you first started, was it as prevalent back then as what it is, until recently in the last few years, or have you seen an increase in it?
Oh, absolutely. When I first started in hospitality, it wasn't an issue at all. but as the years have gone by, I'd say from me noticing it myself, I'd say probably the last 5 years, it's become really extreme. Yeah, other than that, it was here and there, but it wasn't an everyday occurrence that you were dealing with those people. Yeah.
So you were seeing a lot more prevalence of ice use in the people that you were, serving. Obviously, their behaviour was different, so it was becoming more violent. Is that correct? And like, were they really drinking as well, or are they just more at the pubs purely because of the pokies and a social, outlet in order to not be at home?
Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of alcohol involved. There were obviously are some that were still drinking. They were not any more of a problem than anybody else. I think it was more the ones sort of coming into the gaming room, just looking to, pass their time. They're drinking free soft drinks or water. They're losing on the pokies. They might lose their last $5. They get angry, start taking it out of the machine. And, as a gaming manager, you've got to actually deal with that. You can't let that be happening in a gaming room. So then, of course, you're taking the risk that they're going to turn that violence towards you. I find people under the influence of ice are far quicker to turn to that angry person than someone drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
And they've got their wits about them as well. And they're a lot quicker.
They do.
Yeah, they turn a lot more unpredictable, and that's what makes it scary, I guess, as looking as a worker in hospitality. How quickly and how volatile they can be is scary. Yeah.
Do you think you would probably, because you were surrounded by people like that as clients or customers, do you think that was possibly why you probably started taking yourself at times?
No,
and be able to stay up late, things like that. Okay, yeah.
Oh, being in hospitality itself, yes, I believe that definitely. When you're doing 40 to 60 hours a week and you're already exhausted, and you've got big band night on Friday night or something, Friday night, Saturday nights, weekends are always big and busy. So you'd have a little bit, not a lot, because obviously you still need to have your wits about you, and you don't want your workers or your customers picking up on it. So you've got to be, obviously very careful with how much you're using and for how long you're using. But yes, it definitely made those shifts easier to get through, and a lot more fun. It didn't make the start of the new week easier by any means.
No.
So it's just one of those nasty roundabouts that you get on, merry-go-rounds that you get on, and I guess you've just got to suck it up and jump off at some time, and it's going to hurt, it's going to take some time. But I think having that all around me as well helped me to see within myself and the mistakes that I were making, and made you realise very quickly too that obviously when you're on ice or meth or whatever we want to call it these days, you think nobody knows. But looking from an outside view, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Yeah. So that really sort of drums that home as well, being surrounded by it in that sense. It shows the reality of it, and you can't hide it with your own mind and your own conception, because everybody knows. Everybody can tell.
Yeah. It's funny that though too, like I have come across a lot of people that have never been into drugs that they don't really see it as much.
Yeah.
And I remember it was even a conversation I was having with my ex-husband just in the last week, and because he had to stop for petrol on his way home, and it was late one night. So he was like, well, anyway, he said, I was waiting there, and there was probably about several people in front of him, and a couple of people came in whilst he was waiting, and he said everyone was on it, like literally everyone that walked into the service station that night was on it. He's like, if you hadn't have pointed it out to me and shown me, because of the struggles that I've been through and what I've done, he's like, I would not have known. I just would have thought they were really erratic people that I just didn't quite, fit into life, but were just there at the time, So I guess that's the other thing. Unless you've been through it, you don't actually see it properly for what it's worth as well.
Yeah, that's it. Once you know, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, you can pick it from a million miles away. Yeah. You can't hide it, that's for sure. So with that as well, like one of the things I have discussed with a lot of people is that obviously when you take it yourself, obviously you're probably using a bit to be able to get you through work, it's late at night, those sorts of things, to be able to be out, go forth with that work, because your bartenders and gaming managers, like, they're flat off their feet sometimes. They do an amazing job, and they're not just serving people, but they're protecting the community, protecting the livelihoods of the people that own the businesses as well. So it's a pretty big, important job, and we fail to recognise that as society. But my thing with that is often, well, I haven't come across someone that has not had and realised when they're coming out of addiction is that there was something that was so inherently wrong with themselves as to why they decided and picked up drugs in the first place. Would you probably categorise yourself as something of similar nature?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I was singing when I was quite a journey. The first time that I did use it, it was very different, and it wasn't ice or crack.
Yeah.
Back then it was, we just called it speed. So it was much cleaner. You didn't have the nasty come down. It didn't sort of fry your brain like it does these days. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I was sort of in and out of depression. That would obviously lift my mood, give me some confidence, allow me to go out and be with my friends and sort of keep up with them as far as the happiness level and the socializing side of things. So sorry, I've got off track. I actually forgot what your question was now.
So I was talking about many people are they realise as they've come out and through their addiction and through that recovery, was that, I know even for myself it's true, I realised that there was something that I was using drugs because of that innate loss or lack of something that was within myself.
Yeah. So
I
the short answer is yes, absolutely, that was me. Yeah. 100%.
Sorry, since then, obviously you would have had to have done a lot of work on yourself to be able to get to the point that you are, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. How are you going with that?
There's always another layer, as we know. It's the onion effect, or Mandela effect even. There's always another layer. So the healing continues for the rest of your life, I believe. I did a lot of soul searching, and a lot of spiritual work, and a lot of spiritual and emotional healing as well. What probably kicked that off would have been falling pregnant and giving birth to my first son. And I've always actually said he was my saviour. Because when I found out I was pregnant with him, I stopped even smoking cigarettes. I stopped everything. And the realisation that I can do that for a child that's growing inside of me, but I struggled to do it for myself, was a really big wake-up call. And I guess that sort of led me to dig deeper. Like I said, do a lot of soul searching, get help where you can, whether it's through friends or family or professional counselling or spiritual emotional healing. Yeah. So yeah, it's an ongoing job. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are the big things that really helped you? Obviously, when you talk about spiritual healing, what exactly was that? And what were some of the turning points and things that you did in order to be able to get you on the path that you're on?
That's a really good question, and I don't actually know that I have the answers for you for that one.
That's okay.
The thing that I guess made it easier for me to pull myself out of it was that my children needed a mother, and I needed to be the best mother for them that I could. Their dads weren't around. I have 3 sons, one to one father and the younger 2 to another father. And their fathers weren't around. Like, they wholly and solely relied on me, and I took being a mother very, very seriously. I realise now, I didn't want my children to grow up being damaged and sort of seeking out that so-called comfort of drugs. I realise now that it doesn't matter how good a mother I was, we're all damaged in some way, whether it be from home, from school, from friends, even passed down generationally. So big things that I had to do, I guess, was I have the realisation within myself, distance myself from the people that I was using with. They're the main 2 things, I guess, was just, doing it for my children and having to distance myself. We lived in the country, which made it a little bit harder, but at the same time probably a little bit easier, because I find it's easier to occupy yourself when you're in the country. You go out and cut some firewood or collect some kindling, or go for a walk in nature and things like that. So I found those kind of things really important, and very grounding for me. I'm a bit of a weirdo, but I used to like to go and sit in the cemeteries. I find cemeteries very, very peaceful. And they just, I don't know a better way of putting it, but I felt supported there, as crazy as that sounds. You're alone, but you're not alone. I don't find cemeteries to be scary, spooky places at all. So, a lot of nature, a lot of being on my own, a lot of soul searching, and, the big thing is cutting right down on that social time, if not cutting them out completely, depending on where you are in your journey. Depends on whether you can, have little bits of time with people that are using or not.
No, I understand that concept in the sense that being, in more of a rural community, you don't have as many pressures or those people around you, because there's not a lot of people there anyway. But you've also got that space as well. And you're not crazy in the sense of the whole cemetery thing. I actually have to admit, one of my good friends from school many years ago, she met her husband. She was visiting a cemetery to place some flowers on a grave, and she met her husband at a cemetery. That's because he was sitting there. He was sitting there reading a book, because that's the quiet place that he could go, and it was beautiful grounds, and no one bothered him there. So it's not the first time I've heard it, actually. So
no, they're just very. If you're not all superstitious and spooked out, they're very peaceful places with beautiful energy. People go there out of love. So there's just a lot of love energy, I find, in cemeteries, and and strangely feel supported.
It's also to be with their loved ones too, so I completely understand that. It does make sense.
Absolutely.
Totally. So with that as well, sorry, I missed that.
I was just saying, like you said, nobody finds you there. Nobody's going to come looking for you the cemetery. Yeah, so you get left alone.
No.
Yeah.
And all over Australia this week, everyone's going to be found in cemeteries. One of the things I really did like about what you were just talking about then is that, you did have that reason for being clean. You wanted more for your children. Your children were important. And, a lot of people that have come through addiction, a lot of people have lost their children or lost their family and all the rest of it. So they don't have that person, to give them that why. So one of the most important things with getting clean and staying on your clean journey is to be able to try and find that why. So you were lucky, you are blessed. You've got 3 gorgeous sons that you love. And like you said, you might not have done your best, and as mums, we never can because we're always going to fuck up. We really aren't perfect. Absolutely, and it's about whether or not we make the choice to repeat it. Like, okay, so with my addiction, mine lasted for about 4 or 5 years. I did repeat it day after day after day for several years. But in saying that, I got to the point where I didn't want to anymore, and you can gradually move away from it. So you do make those choices to be able to change and be something different. So really proud of you, and at least you had something to be able to give you that focus. Without those kids, I'm sure it probably would be looking exactly the same, correct?
Oh, I don't believe I would even be alive still without my children. Yeah. Whether it have been drug addiction or suicide, I don't believe I would be alive if it wasn't for the fact that I was a mother and they needed me. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously things got pretty bad for you if you're talking suicide and stuff. Like, is that something you want to talk about, or?
I can do. So it's the weather here at the moment is really crazy. So it's noisy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not having the best weather at the moment, that's for sure.
No, it's just hit again now. I'm happy to talk about it. Where to start is a whole nother thing. I guess I don't know. My mum was a single mum. The man that she married, believing to be my father, was a very abusive man, very violent man. My earliest memories are of him being violent towards myself and my mother. And she actually left him when I was 3. So they're very young memories. Depression was always a thing. I make friends quite easily, and I always have, but making real, true connections with people is a lot harder for me. I guess I spent most of my life not feeling lonely, but being very alone, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then on and off drug addiction, I guess experimenting with different drugs, probably from, I guess, realistically from about the age of 12. Sorry, Mum, I've never told her that. So obviously that doesn't help the brain chemicals and whatever else. Since having my children, I can't say that the thought hasn't entered my mind, but never in a serious sense. Yeah. Like, there's been times where I haven't wanted to live, but I haven't wanted to die either. And it's always been my children that have pulled me through. Yeah.
Do you think some of those things were underlying reasons for your drug taking? Because of the abuse, because of the, that deep, lost, lonely feeling inside?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And always sort of wondering, why me? Why me?
Yeah.
Why am I not, as good as the girl down the road or that boy at school, or, why am I not as easygoing and as popular? And and whatnot. Not that I really ever wanted to be super popular or anything, but like I said, I always found it, and still do, hard to make sort of those deep connections where I actually feel comfortable and safe around other people. Yeah, and then a bit of chemical imbalance, and the deep depression kicks in, and it all sort of snowballs from there, I guess. And yeah,
no, without a doubt, it just goes boom and you can't control it.
By
I
the
totally get
time you
that. Thank you.
realise that you've slipped, you've slipped a long way.
Yeah. And you start to use just to be able to make you kind of feel half decent, or at least past the pain.
Exactly.
My heart goes out to you. I mean, we've all been there. Yeah.
Or just keeping up
just
with kids, as a single mum with 3 sons, and they were good boys, but they were very energetic and curious and doing all the things that little boys do and young boys do. So yeah, sometimes I would use a little bit just to be able to keep up with them. Just to be able to keep up with them, keep the house clean, keep everything in order, and keep up with them.
Well, you've amended your past. Do you know what I mean? Like we have to forgive ourselves for what we've done, and move forward through it, in which you have. And look at where you're standing today in terms of what you've achieved, even just in the last few years. Like it really is amazing. It really is. You should be proud of yourself for what you have endured, what you've come through, and where you're actually standing today. Now, my next question is: we talked a little bit about your family.
Yeah.
I know you're still struggling. Sorry, I know you're still struggling with some of the stuff that's going on with your own boys. Could you tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you, and how, as a mum, because it's different when we talk about from our own personal experience, but to be able to talk about it as a mum, I hope that I never have to experience, hand on heart, I never have to experience it with my own kids. But at the end of the day, no one knows what's going to happen. I mean, I can teach them and show them everything and tell them the mistakes in my past, but whether or not and what they do, it's their choice. I could only imagine what it would actually feel like. So as a mum, how does that actually hurt you to see what your boys have gone through and where they're at? What's it like as a mum, rather than from a first-hand experience?
It's absolutely heartbreaking. It is terrifying when they are in full addiction. Every phone call, every knock at the door, every siren you hear, everything, your mind and your heart instantly goes to your child. They're so deep in that addiction that as a mother, you're powerless to help them. All you can do is be there for them and hope that they come to you when they do hit rock bottom. But in that time when they're so low, and you can't have them in your home because it's scary and it's destructive having them in your home, and it's hard to know where the line is between helping them and enabling them. But when they start getting aggressive and violent and whatnot, you've just got to do the hard love thing, and it breaks their heart and it breaks mine more, I think. And then, like I said, every day, every time that you speak to them, you're relieved that you're hearing their voice, but at the same time, you're not talking to your child. Ice absolutely steals the child out of the person. It's a complete contrast between the person that they are when they're clean compared to the person that they are when they're using. At the time, of course, they don't see it. Everything's justified. And as their mum, I guess I'm the safe person. So they know that whatever they throw at me, I'm still going to love them. And even if I won't allow them in my home or to live at my home, they know damn well that I'll be the one that drags them out of the gutter if that's what needs to happen. So that is hard to deal with, being, that safe person. When you think about it logically, it's a little bit comforting, because you know that hopefully they're lashing out at you and not at somebody else out in the world. But of course, being your own child, it cuts twice as deep as if anybody else was to, say or do certain things to you. So bottom line, the answer to that is it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Having experienced it myself as well, I totally understand the disregard for everybody's concern, because I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. It's all you guys that have got the problem, I'm doing fine. But you can see that they're not, especially when I had one son in particular who would he could be clean for weeks, and then he would use again. He'd wake up the next day and literally the skin would wipe off of him like it was burns on. So he always had these open sores, on his face and on his hands and stuff like that. And it was instant. It wasn't because he had been using endlessly. Like I said, he could be 3-4 weeks clean. He'd use once, and that was the reaction that it was having in his body. Another one of my sons who sort of slips in and out of full addiction never had that issue. It wasn't because he used any less or because he used any differently. It was just a different way that it seemed to affect them physically.
The thing that people don't actually realise is that it's made up of so many different chemicals that are so toxic. There is no way that you would pick up, some of these ingredients to be able to ingest. Because you die. Do you know what I mean? And they've just managed to put it together to be able to form this. Like, it is so toxic, and it literally changes our entire pH levels in our body. Obviously, it changes the whole chemical structure that goes on in our brains. There are significant health risks. It's strange that you actually mentioned that burning thing, because I've got another friend of someone's close to me, and she used to, like, the drugs actually made her, like, she was allergic to it, so she used to get massive sores, and because no pus or anything like that would form, she's left with like massive scars all over her entire body. And she was she's still a beautiful young lady, but it's affected her appearance so much. The actual AAIC CEO actually talks about how she damaged her kidneys so badly that she still experiences her kidneys bleeding at times. Like, the health risks that this drug poses is just absolutely mental. It really does need to be taken off the streets. But the other thing with that whole feeling of it being your son's, I can't imagine what that would feel like. Do you ever think to yourself, like, do you ever feel guilty? Do you ever think, it's my fault or anything like that? Or
100%. Yeah. And I think as a mother or as a parent, you're always going to blame. It's human nature. We need someone to blame. And as a parent and a mother, I think you're always going to hold at least some of that guilt. Yeah, I blame myself. Absolutely, I do. I was the best mother that I could be. I believe I was a good mother. Obviously, I made mistakes, and in hindsight as well, if you can make decisions knowing what the future is going to hold, obviously we'd make different decisions. But yeah, no, absolutely, I hold a lot of guilt, and my own use as well.
Yeah.
Just puts even more guilt on me. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever considered the fact that, if anything, you should not feel that guilt, because if anything, you were honest, you were open with them. Obviously, you weren't using in front of things like that, but you'd not that you normalized it, but you had shown them firsthand your life, what it was like, and how it had disrupted your own life. Don't you think that was warning enough? Like, I don't see why you should be guilty. I know that obviously, you weren't perfect as a mum, but in saying that, you did your best to be able to care and love and protect them and teach them and show them that drugs are not the way. That was just their choice, because at the end of the day, we all have free will. It's ourselves that make the decision as to whether or not we're going to use it. You know for yourself that the decision was yours and yours alone. It wasn't anyone else. You can't blame anyone else.
Yeah.
So you really shouldn't have to feel that guilt, hun. Like, unfortunately, that's the circumstances and that's the table.
You're right.
I think you should probably, yeah. Because at the end of the day, like, that you didn't force them, you didn't sit them down and say, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I do know what you mean, but again, as a parent, I think you always bring it back onto yourself. I did do the best that I was able to do. I stand by the fact that my kids never suffered because of my use. I kept my use small, and like I said, and as soon as I sort of was doing something out of character, or like I said, lying about it, it would instantly trigger something in me that this is not right. I got to pull myself up. So they never seen the drug use as young children, at least. But you always wonder, what could I have done differently? Or you're always going to wonder that, I think, as a parent, as in, where did I fail them? Where did I let them down? How could I have, changed the course of their journey? Yeah, I think that's just parental nature to think that. Yeah, because of course I'm the one that raised them. So I raised them into the people that they are. Had I maybe done things a little bit differently, maybe had I have been less open and more strict, maybe if I had have sent them to a private school, all of these things, I don't believe that it really would have made that much of a difference, but you never know. You never know. One different decision
could have made it worse.
Whole course. Exactly. It could have. So I think as a parent, you just always bring that guilt back onto yourself in some sense. Yeah.
And with your kids, just how bad has it gotten for them and for you, just watching that?
Bad. Like I said, I've got 3 sons. The youngest seems to have learnt from all of us. He doesn't even smoke cigarettes. He doesn't drink alcohol. He does no drugs at all. And I'd have to say he's the happiest of all of us. The other 2, have sort of been in and out of full-blown addiction. There's, again, I've forgotten the question, Opal. I'm so sorry.
Don't apologise. I said just how bad has it gotten for them? A repercussion, how bad has that been for you?
Yeah, it's gotten pretty bad. So looking back on photos of my eldest boy in particular, looking back over photos, say when his son was born, his son's about to turn 8. So we're looking back about 8 years ago when he was born. And looking at photos of him, his head looks like it's 3 times too big for his body, just things like that. And looking at photos like we used to see, and I don't know how many yourself or how many viewers would remember, but we used to see the ads in the 80s and stuff of the and probably the 90s as well, I guess. The poor Ethiopian kids and stuff, and they had these little tiny stick figure bodies and these big. That's what it reminded me of. Seeing him like that. He started his drug use quite early. So after his son was born, he pulled himself up, and we thought he'd missed his chance to fill out and beef up like a man does or a boy does when they get to a certain age. But luckily for him, he didn't miss that opportunity. So he's like 3 times the size as he was then. And now he looks normal and healthy. And he's a big boy. Like he's not fat at all. He's big. He's solid. Yeah, he's like 6'2", I think. And big and solid. And seeing your own child grow into a man who is so feeble and physically undeveloped is hard to see. Like I said, luckily for him, he did get off it young enough that his body was able to actually fill out and become the man that he is physically. The other son, it got very bad. He was sort of couch hopping from the places that you wouldn't even leave your dog at, really, really bad places that, you might walk past and think, oh my God, like the council needs to just doze that whole thing down and clean it up. Where it might be a 3-bedroom house, but there's 14 people living there. Stuff like that. So one of my sons sort of hopped around that kind of lifestyle for a while, even to the point where he was living in a caravan that actually had no walls. It had sheets for walls, and that was his home. It was in an absolute junkyard. But I couldn't have him home because he was so deep in his addiction. He was still my son, but it was like my son wasn't in there anymore. You couldn't talk to him. There was no conversation. There was no logic. There was no respect or consideration. There was, he was abusive. He was angry. He was tightly wound. It was everybody else's fault. And that was hard to do, to not let him in, but I couldn't let him in because sadly I didn't feel safe around him, which was really heartbreaking in itself. They're not completely out of addiction yet, but they are definitely a lot better than they were. They've got, if there is such a thing, they've got a better handle on it, at least.
Well, just like you, just like anyone, like even though it's something that you want to stop and you want to change, it's not something that just happens instantly. it's not that simple. It's not that easy. It's, you know, working out all those emotions and that crap that's going on inside of you. It's changing your whole entire lifestyle, whether it be, you know, jobs if you've got one, housing if you've got one, all the friends and the people that you associate with, and then still with those few things, there's still so much more fucking work that you need to do, and you tend to yo-yo and you go back and forth and you relapse and you be good for a while, and you know, it's a really long recovery stage, unfortunately. And so many people say, well, you just stop, you just get better, you'll be fine. It's like, it doesn't work like that. Like I didn't realize that I would still be sitting here today, you know, two a bit years on, whatever it is, and say, well, I still feel like I'm in recovery. I really am. Because although, you know, I'm doing this and I'm clean and whatnot, like there's so much work that needs to be done, like the layers that you talked about earlier, that it takes a really long time. But I'm glad that they're slowly getting there. I can only imagine as a mum, it would just be probably more harrowing than your own experiences.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they're babies.
Absolutely. My own experiences didn't scare me. They didn't bother me. Watching them go through it scares the life out of me, and it breaks my heart because there's nothing I can do to help them. There's nothing I can do to ease their pain. There's nothing I can do to repair any damage, you know, physically, emotionally, mentally. There's nothing I can do. Just sit back and be a support, like an emotional support. There's nothing else that you can do. So yeah, you just sit back and pray to whoever it is you pray to, and yeah, ask whoever it is to, you know, watch over them and keep them safe, and yeah, and just hope for the best, and keep loving them, and I mean that will never stop anyway. But yeah, you've just got to I guess try to put a lot of things aside once you see your child coming back, like not that they're children, but you know, they're my children. Once you see their true personality and their true caring nature starting to show again, you've just got to be ready to accept that with, you know, no criticism, no, you know, well, I don't know, you were shit before and now look at you, you're good. Like, I guess you can do that, but you've got to be careful not to reflect back on that full addiction and the things that they may have done or said while in that addiction, because although it was them at the time and they might have physically or verbally done these things, it wasn't them. So when you start seeing, you know, the real inner person coming back out in them, you've just got to, and you can't make too big a deal of it either, you know, like you've just got to be real subtle about it, and just keep letting them know that you're proud of them and you love them, and and you understand, I guess, to an extent. My addiction never sort of wreaked havoc on my life to the extent that it has for them. But like I said before, the drug was different. The drugs were different back in my day. They just weren't so chemically nasty. But sometimes having that experience and that inner understanding is not a help. You know, sometimes it's a bit of a hindrance, because I look at my journey and, you know, I could wonder, well, why can't they do it?
Yeah.
But it's different for everybody. And like I said, the drug is different now as well. And because I had children, I had to keep a rein on my use, because I had to be present for them. Sorry. Phone's going.
No, you do. And I think you said that beautifully, in the sense that there's not much, you can't point out what they had done wrong or how they wronged you, or whatnot. And I think it goes for not just for your kids if your kids are on drugs, but for anyone that is suffering with addiction. Is it's just about love. It's about acceptance. It's not about forcing it in their face in terms of what they've done or all the rest of it, because that just feeds back into the addiction and sends them back into that spiral of addiction. So the most important thing we can do as mothers, as friends, as lovers, as a society, is just to support and love, which is what we're trying, really to spread. It's about the education, so people know and understand what it is that the drugs actually do to you. It's the education in terms of how it will affect society, etc. as a whole. But it's also just that love, because it is what makes the world go round, and it's what supports, it's what helps someone recover. It's the only thing that helps make someone recover, and it takes a goddamn long freaking time. I'm sorry, but it does.
It does.
Really does.
It does, and even once you're clean, it's for some people it's like giving up cigarettes or giving up alcohol. Even though you're clean and you're past the addiction side of it, or the use side of it at least, there's always that little thing in the back of your head, oh, just once, just once, or just one drink, or just one smoke. You're always going to want it.
Yep.
Well,
it is.
I say that, but
it's a constant struggle.
Everything, or for everybody, but yeah, sometimes that is the case where it's always a battle, and that's not fair.
No. No. And then you also, it's like it does something to your mental health in the sense that you beat yourself up about thinking that way, even though that it was just a passing thought, and that fear of actually taking that step is huge as well. It's not a nice feeling, but I actually fully understand you on that one. Totally get it. Totally. I freak myself out sometimes, like especially as we're coming up to that busy season. Lots is happening. People are going out for Christmas drinks and whatnot. And my fear this time of year is, like, what if I have a couple of drinks and I make a stupid mistake?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, your inhibitions are lowered because you've had a few drinks, and if it's around, if I did it once, am I going to stop? Because I'm not so sure of.
That's exactly right. So, yeah, I was lucky. I was very, very lucky. I lost my job 3 or 4 years ago. It must be four years ago now. And it just so happened that a friend was had called over at the time, and he was in full-blown addiction at the time. And it didn't take much for him to convince me, come on, let's go get on it. And what have you got to lose? You've lost your job, and I did. I used again, and I felt horrible. It made me vomit repeatedly, and then once I got over that, it was just too much. It was just too much. I didn't enjoy it, and then the next 3 or 4 days coming down again was just like, why did I think it would be okay? And luckily for me, that was it. It was a one-time thing at that time. Had my circumstances had been different, had I not been through the journey I had I not, been watching my boys go through it, maybe it would have been different. Maybe that would have been another full relapse for me. But yeah, it's quite often the temptation or the thoughts are always going to be there, and it's just something you have to be strong enough to fight, unfortunately.
Takes a long time.
It does.
Well, before we wrap up, if you what would be your one message to anyone that's experiencing addiction at the moment?
Sorry, anybody that...
I said, what would be your one piece of advice to anyone that's in addiction at the moment?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know, really. Sit with yourself. Sit with yourself. Have a look inside yourself. Find the love for yourself. to get better. If you can't do it for yourself, then look to somebody around you. Like I said, with myself, I